Hey guys, we're back. I'm Colette.
It's your girl C Saint.
And this
is Hey Cuz. Your favorite cousins are back, and we are here to talk about everyone's favorite topic. Let's talk about race, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about race. Let's talk about race.
Break it down.
We know that everybody loves to talk about it.
Yes, they
Not
do.
really, but we're gonna do it anyway. So we're going to do a series about race, and unfortunately, there's a lot of ground to cover. So we'll just do a quick rundown about some of the things you're going to hear about in this series. So we have systemic versus cultural racism, microaggressions, colorism, cultural appropriation versus appreciation, how media portrayal leads to stereotypes that are still well living and breathing, the dangers of being colorblind. And today we're going to kind of talk about race in general, how we can avoid being racist. Do you believe in race? Do you believe it exists? Because there's people who don't think racism exists at all. So we can talk about that. And if you do understand that racism exists, how you can be a good ally and how you can avoid being racist, how you can grow and unlearn those implicit biases that have been kind of imposed and fed to you over the course of time. So this is the question that we hear a lot. Why everything gotta be about race, Colette?
Because it is about race, Candace. Always has.
Elaborate.
This country
to the people
has made it all about race, okay? It was built on it. It's embedded in our system. So this whole, why does it have to be about race? You guys started it.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel too. I feel like it's like you created the game. We're just learning the rules and playing it.
Just trying to survive.
So it's like when we throw the rules back, it's like, no. It's just like when you play Uno with your friends. Like you call these rules at the beginning of the game. Now that I'm calling no Uno on you, you mad. You can't have it. You can't have it both ways. And I agree. It is all about race. I think, and that's always my answer. It is about race. Everything is about race because that's just the state of this country. I can only speak for this country. I feel like it exists in most countries, especially westernized countries. But I live in America. I'm familiar with the United States of America. So I'm going to speak about America primarily. Racism definitely does exist in America.
It does.
It is deeply embedded into our culture, into every system, healthcare, government, justice, education. It's everywhere. So that's the answer to that question for all the people that love to ask it. Why y'all got to make everything about race? It's just the nature of the beast. But we didn't create the beast, so.
And if you disagree, let us know.
Let us know. I love to be educated. You know, we're not going to tolerate any disrespect or belligerence or anything of that nature, but we're always open to have a healthy conversation.
Yes.
So hit us up if that's something that you would love to do. We love to have company at the table, so let us know. And again, back to that, we can go into the constant dismissal of the issues that are brought forth by, the new term is, I don't know if it's a word, BIPOC or BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Why, if something doesn't exist, why are you so quick to dismiss it instead of just trying to hear someone out? I mean, because there are certain things that you will never understand. Just like there are things that men go through. If a guy was telling me a story, I'm not going to dismiss him because I will never understand that as I am a woman. So similarly, as when it comes to race, if you're of one race, there are things that you will never understand that a different race goes through. So I think we need to stop with the immediate dismissal when, things come up, or to try to justify it or to bring up something negative. It's just, there's always a dismissal tactic. So what kind of dismissal tactics have you seen in life?
There's the crying, there's the why about race, there's the, oh no, I'm not racist, I have Black friends. There's this whole, let's just change the narrative. And I think it comes from a lot of guilt. That's my opinion. Whether it's historical guilt of, okay, if I go down my family line, there's someone down there that at some point owned a slave, or at some point
or it's like, I didn't do it.
I'm not responsible for it. And you know what? We're in 2021. If you didn't do it, that's fine. I'm not even gonna, attack a person. You didn't do it. You weren't there, okay? However, you have knowledge of what is going on in this world. And I am gonna hold you accountable for changing it, because your voice is the voice that can change it. Mine is not. It's never gonna have that amount of power as yours. So there is a certain level of accountability that you ought to have to make sure that you are challenging the system. Challenge the system that was built upon this hatred, this racism, this broken system, this falsehood of the American dream of you work hard, you get what's coming to you. When really, it's really just built to, it's going against the people of color. That's how it is.
More or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the people who are concerned and want to know what they can do to help, because I often hear from, people of different races, but what can I do? Especially white people, they're like, I just feel like people are mad at me. What do I do? And you can just speak up. Like, we've all heard people making racist jokes, and even jokes that you didn't realize were racist. Because I've had friends from college after having, I post these things on Facebook because they're things that I care about. And I've had people from college reach out to me and say, oh, I never thought about that. That was wrong. And they apologized. And so they made know better. You know better, do better.
Right.
So the thing with like the stereotypes and the people who love to say they have Black friends, who are your Black friends? Are they, everybody has a token Black friend. That's the stereotype. We see it again, back to what's portrayed in the media, the token Black friend. And or like, oh, you're not like them. What does that mean? Who's them? And what are they like? And do they represent, like, there is no typical white person, just like there is no typical Black person.
Exactly.
And when you want to say, we're all human, we're all one race,
then treat us like we're human.
Right. We are human, and we all do have different types of interest. So I know in my experience, especially when I moved to Georgia, I got, oh, you're just an Oreo, Candace, or you're not like that. You talk white. And those types of statements need to stop, because it gives the negative connotation that Black people lack intelligence, and anything bad is associated with a Black person, anything good is associated with a white person. Like saying that I talk white, like, what does that mean? Because you think I'm intelligent. Why do you associate? And that's something that people need to look introspectively. Why do you associate intelligence with whiteness? It shouldn't, like, no race owns intelligence. No race owns humor or quirkiness, or, it's just like certain personality attributes. People will say a Black person, it's like, oh, you act white, or something like that. That was always confusing to me. Especially if you're one of those people who like to say we're all human, and yet those types of things come out of your mouth. Clearly you don't believe these things. So my message really is just to take a step back and pause. Go over the things that your beliefs that you have. And if something that we say today triggers you, don't be offended. Just take a pause to, think introspectively, have I said these things? Do I think these things? It's all about learning how to maneuver and learning how to approach people with respect, and just undoing these implicit biases that have been embedded in our psyche over time. I mean, we all have them. Nobody's immune to it. It's all about being aware.
Willing to learn and challenge And even if you live in a predominantly white area, I still challenge you to learn and explore. Because if you go outside of that, you don't want to have these poor thoughts about people of color. You should be able to go anywhere in the world and, you know, not have these stereotypes, not have these prejudices against other people and other races. So I still challenge you to listen to this and learn from it. And I think a lot of it is this, you know, I don't, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I see a lot of this, you know, it's just defensiveness with it. There's no just take a step back and listen to what is being said, doing research on where is it coming from. It's just, you're attacking me and I'm going to get defensive and blow things out of proportion. Just hear us out. Hear us out.
I've experienced that. However, like I said, I've experienced the flip where there have been people, it's an awkward conversation. It is uncomfortable, but it's necessary.
For growth.
I like, if you think about it, I'm uncomfortable existing. So I feel like you can take a time to be uncomfortable for a moment to learn something new. And I think, you know, it shouldn't stop at just being offended. It has to go further. Like, pause on being offended and just it's not going to kill you to listen. I feel like it won't hurt, that won't hurt anyone, just to take time to listen. Even if you don't agree, at least be open to listening. Be open-minded, have an open heart. If you truly care, that's what it's about, having an open heart. So kudos to the people who are willing to have that dialogue. Dialogue is necessary. That's the whole point of this whole show. I feel like nothing can change until you have that dialogue about it, even if it's awkward. And it's going to be awkward. That's just the nature of it. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but it's necessary. So, and I've watched a lot of roundtables and posts and videos from different social media personalities. And you'll say, wow, I'm white, but I have Black friends, or I have Black coworkers. And then on the flip side, they also say, oh, I've known these people for all these years, and I never knew that they felt this way. So in my mind, I'm like, are these people really your friends?
Right.
Now, I have friends for 20 years, and I know 10, 15, 20 years. I know a lot about them, like a lot. So I can't say, wow, I didn't know you never experienced it. So are you truly getting to know the people in your circle? You don't need to know all their business, but the fact that you're so shocked that Black people or Asian people or whoever have been experiencing certain things in their life is a problem. And I think a lot of people like to say, I was just ignorant about it. But you don't have to be ignorant, especially it's 2021. The internet is there. The internet is free. Knowledge is free at this point. I feel like ignorance is an excuse. There is no excuse for ignorance at this point. So if you're ignorant, it's because you want to be. And I think for a lot of white people, it's comfortable to be ignorant. So you can say, oh man, I didn't know. And that takes the accountability off of you. We do need people to take up for us. I've had instances at work where I will go to a white coworker and be like, I need you to express this, because if I say it, it's not going to come off right, or it's going to feed into that stereotype, the angry Black woman, especially for me, because I'm passionate, as I like to say. So it's sad. So the fact that people like to deny that racism exists is wild to me, because if it didn't, I wouldn't need a buffer in my place of, and that's basically what it is. It's a buffer. I wouldn't need it. And 9 times out of 10, I don't, because I'm I'm confident to address things, when they happen, but not everybody does. And that's the issue. Things will continue to happen.
And unfortunately, you're going to be heard more with that buffer than without it.
Yes, and so that's why we do need some good allies, people who are willing to speak up. And it's not just when we're present, it's in our absence too. Because I think it's worse when things are done in your absence. And worse in the presence, because the fact that you're so comfortable to say things to our face, it does mean that you're completely oblivious. And that's what colorblindness causes.
Got right.
Cannot be. I just want to announce that saying you're colorblind and that you don't see color is not a compliment. So, like I said, I love to remove ignorance from people. You heard it here. If this is the first time you heard it here. That is not a compliment.
Not. Do not.
And you can elaborate on that if you like. What does it mean to you when you hear that?
That I don't see color?
Someone says, oh, I don't see color, Colette. You're cool with me.
You don't see me. You're ignorant to anything that I'm going through in life, or any person of color for that matter, because you can't acknowledge the history that comes with me being a Black person and stuff that I have to deal with on a daily, because you're ignorant. You're telling me you don't see it. It doesn't exist. So if someone says something in my presence that is a microaggression, which we'll get in at a later time, or is a racist comment, it's going to go right over your head because you do not acknowledge the fact that I am a Black female. You have to see color because different races have different struggles. So you're taking away that struggle, but also on the positive note, you're also taking away the beauty of the culture. Mm-hmm. If you don't see colorblindness, certain races have certain cultures, certain beautiful aspects that people use all the time, that if you are ignorant to that, you're saying that, okay, well, I don't acknowledge that it comes from you.
That's another reason why cultural appropriation exists.
Exactly, which we'll also get in a later time too.
Oh, we definitely got to go there. And I'm recruiting anybody who, different culture, if you're from anywhere in Asia, if you're Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, wherever you're from, if you're from India, the Middle East, Africa, we want to talk to you because we want to get your thoughts on cultural appropriation. I think that's a huge topic that needs to be addressed.
Right. So please tag yourselves in the comments if you would like to come on and talk about your culture. We can only speak on what we know. We're both from Caribbean families. That's all we can talk about. But I do want to definitely hear about other cultures and what their experience is living in America, going through either racism or cultural appropriation or appreciation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so we talked about the token. Does having a Black friend or an Asian friend or an Indian friend excuse you from saying inappropriate things? My thing is, if you know it's inappropriate, don't say it. It's kindergarten rules. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's just like, my thing is like, why is it in you? Why it's like an itch. Like you just need to say something inappropriate. Like why?
It's the awkwardness of not wanting to acknowledge the race. At the same time, you can't help but see a difference. So at some point,
right, you see the difference. We know you see it. It's kind of just weird. Like it's a duality almost. Like you say you don't see it, but you always bring it up. Because 9 times out of 10, I'm not bringing race up. Like, I know I'm Black. I mean, I wake up Black and go to sleep. Like, I know I don't need to announce it. But it's just like somebody just needs to. So it's like, you can't be on like in the middle of the fence. Pick a side. Because you can't say you don't see color, but then you always want to bring it up. Mm-hmm. You see it.
Oh yeah, you see it.
Let's stop playing the ignorant game. 9 times out of 10, you see it, and you know when something's inappropriate, and you know when something is wrong. I appreciate people who speak up for things when someone says, water cooler talk, locker room talk often gets inappropriate. Mm-hmm. That is the time to check it. When the defenses are down, you don't want to check stuff when it's heated. Check it when it's low, and then people will learn. You just have to, it's a learning lesson. Like people will continuously learn, like, this is not right. Like, also, I don't know why this just popped in my head. Don't touch my hair. No, everybody's different, but I'll just say, just ask first. It was just a random thought. Sorry.
You know what? It's the truth though.
It's very triggering for me. I've gone through a transition with my hair, so it's even worse because people are curious that people have known me for a long time. I look completely different than when they met me. So it just kind of amplifies it. You can ask, but do not just touch someone's hair.
Just don't, go and you got to remember, this is a part of somebody's body. Would you go out on the street and just start touching people? They have names.
But that's what I was going to go to, because in society, there is a gross dehumanization and objectification of Black bodies, Black people. So I say Black bodies because sometimes we forget we're people.
Exactly.
The fact that you think you could just reach out and touch our hair.
Right.
You wouldn't do that to anyone else. But in the media, it's like a slow and steady thing that's been happening. You don't think that we're objects, but you do, because that's what's been fed to you. So without realizing it, so it's like the fact that you do these things without realizing it, you're looking at us like we're objects. We're just things that we can touch and probe that, and you can be curious all you want. I love to talk. I love to ask questions. Ask questions. We'll explain. Some people won't, and that's a growing process too. Some people are hurt and their defenses are up. Like they love to say, Black people can be racist. They can, but it's a reaction. It's not that we just came out guns blazing. If somebody, it's like when you like they say, poking the bear. If you keep poking a bear, eventually that bear is gonna, it's gonna claw you. Yeah. We're human. If you keep poking the bear, eventually we're gonna react to it. So I'm not saying it's right. It is, but it exists for a reason. And so we need to address the reasons. If we take down the reasons, we can live a more peaceful life amongst each other. It shouldn't be uncomfortable to interact with people of other races. And I think sometimes it is. And it's unfortunate. It's interesting. Also with the dehumanization of Black people, Disney, Pixar, people don't like to talk about this one. Why is it every time there's a movie that involves a person of color, specifically a Black person, they're literally dehumanized? Like in Princess and the Frog, she was a frog for almost we were so excited when we saw,
and how excited we were
when we saw the advertisement for Princess and the Frog. We were ecstatic. How did you feel when you finished watching the movie the first time?
I was pissed. I was pissed. I mean, she was beautiful. I was like, oh, they got in New Orleans. They got the gumbo going and all that. Okay.
Great, beautiful culture. I was excited to see that too.
So excited. And I was like, okay, they went there. And then she's a frog. And I'm like, okay, maybe, they're going to change her and it's going to change back quickly. No. But that didn't bother me as much as Soul did.
Soul that, maybe for me, Soul hit harder because of Princess and the Frog.
Because Princess and the Frog.
But Soul also had a lot of problems. If you dig
in, yeah.
It's there were a lot of issues. There's compounded in Soul, but they literally took the soul out of the Black man. If that's not symbolic, I don't know what is. If that's not literal dehumanization of a Black man, then I don't know what it is. That was ridiculous. And I also have a question for Black people, specifically because I'm Black, so I can only speak from my experience. Because for me, like I said, I'm passionate. People are just like, Candace, you make a big deal out of everything. Why don't you make a big enough deal out of not everything, but certain things? I feel like some things are a big deal. And especially going back to microaggression, the word in itself is little aggression. I feel like if you don't deal with the little aggressions, like people get mad over when they see something like George Floyd. But what led to that? Right. Multiple microaggressions lead to things like that. So when people see me reacting to microaggressions, they're like, it's not even that deep. It's not even that serious. It is that serious to me, because when I see that microaggression, what my mind sees is George Floyd.
Exactly.
So for me, it's that serious. I don't want you to believe that this little thing, even if it's little, it doesn't matter. It's wrong. Wrong is wrong. Just like people say sin is sin. It doesn't matter if it's a little sin or a big sin. Wrong is wrong. This little infraction matters. I don't want you to think it's okay. And just because I'm not personally offended or bothered, I just don't want you to think you could do it to someone else. So I need to tell you in this moment, this is not okay. So I need to know, like, Black people will want to say, oh, it's like that Black woman stereotype. Black people perpetuate it too.
Of course.
So everyone needs to check things in the moment. Black, white, yellow, red, green, like, it doesn't matter. Asian, Indian, let's speak in real terms. Everyone needs to, if you address it in the moment, that's how we reduce the, like you said, it's uncomfortable to interact with. That's how we reduce that. That's how we reduce the confrontations and the conflict. You have to address it. And at some point when white people say they're ignorant to certain things, maybe they are, because no one ever checked them on it.
Yeah.
Because like the things in college, the things they said were kind of harmless, but how are they supposed to know it's inappropriate if no one tells them? Because some things aren't as, overtly wrong as other things. Like you say, oh, Candace, you're an Oreo. It's not, it's not that offensive to say that. It is offensive.
It's someone in your circle that knows that you're really not and has a love.
And I have a good sense of humor. It wasn't a big deal at the time. And we laughed. But we all know it's not right because of what it implies. Because somebody nearby might hear it and they might not understand the joke. So it's unfortunate that it's not, people like to say our generation is soft. We're not soft. We're just more self-aware and responsible and intentional with the things that we say and do. And that's important. You need to be intentional with the things that you say and do. Just because it's not that offensive. It's not that offensive. It's not, but it's not right either.
Right.
So why do we want to justify incorrect behaviors?
It's a part of it is just the way the mind has been trained from way back when. Silence and just being compliant and just, okay, I got to make them feel comfortable, especially if it's a Black person in an era that is predominantly white, whether that is the
silence is compliance, whether it's white silence or Black silence.
Situation, exactly. But at some point, you got to protect your peace. I'm very big with protecting your peace. And there's no way you can tell me you're happy with your life if people are throwing all these subtle hints of stereotypes your way, and you're not taking that trauma and going to bed with it and waking up and going through life again. At some point, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect you in a very, very
it's going to affect somebody else because you took it out on them.
That too. That's
going to affect someone.
Random chaotic killings and all that. Absolutely.
It's going to affect someone.
So don't take that home and go to bed with it, because guess what? That person that said that to you, they're thinking nothing of it and they're sleeping just fine at night. So my rule is, if you make me feel that uncomfortable saying something that is very inappropriate, we're gonna have a conversation. You're gonna feel uncomfortable and we're gonna get to the bottom of it. But you don't get to walk off and leave and be all jolly and happy in your bubble. Nope, I'm gonna pop in there.
And especially in my sphere of influence. And that's all we have control. I can't change the world as much as I would like to. I cannot. I can only control my immediate circle, my sphere of influence, the people that I have to interact with on a day-to-day basis. It is uncomfortable as it is just navigating the world as a Black woman. That's something I have to deal with regardless. So I'm not, in my immediate sphere of influence, as much as possible, going to be made uncomfortable. If I'm going to work, I'm not going to be made to be uncomfortable with these microaggressions and people thinking they can talk to you any kind of way. And I'm not making these things up. We'll go into it and I'll give specific examples because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has one. And that's why we can say these things exist. If we line up 20 people of color, I'm sure every single one of them will have a story. So it's like, we need to stop just dismissing these things. These things do exist. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So I'm not going to be made uncomfortable to exist at my job. I'm not going to be made uncomfortable to exist in my friend group, or when we go out somewhere to dinner, or wherever we go. I'm not going to be made uncomfortable as a patient. because the healthcare system has a lot of issues with racism and stereotypes that are embedded into the medical system. So yeah, I check things there too. And that's a huge issue that needs to be addressed. If there's any doctors or nurses, anybody who wants to hop in on that conversation, I'd love to talk about that.
On that too, you got two healthcare professionals on here.
Because people will deny that one, like completely. So all in all,
I have a question for you.
Okay, I got an answer maybe.
2020 was this year of awakening for race. I don't know why it took
me either.
All of that.
That was mind blowing to me as well.
So my question is, that whole George Floyd thing and situation sort of blew up. Other nations got involved with, being upset and disgusted by how things played out. Why do you think it took that specific killing out of all the ones that have happened for people to sort of feel uncomfortable enough to shake up and check a little bit of their privilege and a little bit of what's going on in this country when it comes to race? Why did it take that?
From what I have heard from conversations that I've had, it's because we had nowhere else to look. Like, it was just in your face. It was COVID. Everything was shut down. Majority of the people were at home. There was no distraction. You had to look at it. You had to see it. It was everywhere. There was no avoiding it. So I do believe that's why that specific event was the trigger. And that's because I asked. I asked. I asked everyone. I asked people of all races. I'm like, why this? And like I said, people always say, Candace, you always, like, why you always gotta go there? This is why it doesn't take that. It shouldn't have to take that to make you address certain things, to hold you accountable for certain things, to hold other people accountable for certain things. It shouldn't have taken that. And I hope that proved the point of why I am the way I am. I hope so. I need to stop explaining myself.
It also proves
it should not have taken that. I mean, this has been going on as long as I can remember. I remember the first event I remembered. I don't remember what year it was. I know I was a child. How do you say his name? Amadou Diallo. I think that was in New York City, wasn't it? He got shot 40 times in the back. He was trying to get in his house. That's the first thing that I can remember. And I think I was like the early 90s. So I was absolutely a child. And the fact that I'm a child and I still remember that. So that was decades ago. It should not have taken this to open people's eyes. That's my stance. I'm glad they're awake. Kudos to you.
I'm just saying.
I'm glad you woke up, stretch it out, get that good yawn in. Now we have to do the work.
Exactly.
It cannot stop there. It cannot stop at posting Black squares on your Instagram, going to protests. That's cute. And people always like, you always bashing protests. I'm not bashing protests. That's all well and good. However, what are you doing in your everyday life to effect change? Exactly. That's my question. And that's always going to be my stance. There is always something that you could be doing to effect change in your life and in the lives of those around you. And that's what's missing, I think, largely from our society and from people our age. I think a lot of people are waking up and they're learning and seeing things, but that's not enough. It can't stop there.
Right.
You have to get that confidence to be able to speak up. You have to speak up. That's my 2 cents.
I like it.
So y'all gonna keep asking why I'm so extra. I'm just gonna be extra, if that's what you want to call it. I don't think I'm extra. I think I'm adequate. I think my response is completely adequate to the situation. Sometimes I don't think it's adequate enough. You should be grateful. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's serious for me. For me, myself personally. I am not going to be uncomfortable. I am going to educate. I'm going to speak up. If nobody else will, I'm doing it. And however, I'm not going to always do it for you. I'm not your hero. You're not going to be on my coattails. Everyone needs to do their part. And that's another thing it's like on one hand, they want to be like, wow, Candace, you're so aggressive. You're so passionate. You're so extra. But on the other hand, you want to be like, Candace, can you go and speak up for this? Candace, you can't have it both ways.
Exactly.
Which one? Because you want to profit off of my passion. No, I want to inspire. I want you to be inspired by my passion, inspired to do it on your own. Because one person, this is not a comic book. Superheroes don't exist. One person cannot change the world. It takes every person to take little steps in the right direction. That's the only way the world can change. So no, I'm not going to save you. I'm not going to speak up for you all the time. I'm not going to do it. I mean, I will help you, but I'm not going to continue to do that because that becomes enabling. You need to, it is my hope that you're inspired by the things that I'm doing and by the things that you see, by the things that you're hearing on this podcast, even inspiring you to take the steps forward. So that's my hope. To wake up, be self-aware, be accountable, and have confidence. What say you, cousin?
In conclusion, okay, she is telling you to speak up. And that goes for everybody. Doesn't matter what race you are, you need to speak up. Speak up when somebody's mistreating you or you're hearing something about another race that is offensive. Speak up and do the right thing if you are the one that's doing the harm. Do your research, do some self-reflection. Make sure you change the way that you think about others because all that. But definitely, people of color, I am begging you to speak up.
And respectfully.
Is done.
As passionate as I am still respectful.
Yes, of course, respectfully. Because if you don't do it respectfully, you gotta understand.
You do more harm than good.
Stereotype.
It's gonna do more harm than good.
The service, like you're feeding to the stereotype, and then they'll have more initiative to go. This is why. This is why. So please do it respectfully. I know it sucks. I know we hate hearing it. I know it triggers us. I know we want to go into defense mode, sometimes even resort to violence, but don't do it. I am begging you, don't do it. You can do it respectfully because there's already this negative, lack of intelligence attached to us, this animalistic behavior attached to us. Don't give in to that.
And not just to us, but just to the concept of race in general. It's a negative connotation attached to it, period. And people don't want to be associated with anything to do with it. But this is this is where we live. This is the world we live in. It's unfortunate, but these things exist. We can't pretend they don't. And the only way to resolve it is to address it. That's my 2 cents. And you can say, speak up one more time.
Speak up, okay? We are asking you to speak up.
Yep, so let's talk about race, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about race.
So
peace and love.
Getting some more and more topics later down the road, so stay tuned for that. And like I said before, if you would like to jump in, especially if you're from any other culture that is not Caribbean, especially, we definitely want to hear from you. If you're Caribbean too, you can pop in. I'm just saying, we
got that covered.
But definitely hop in the comments. I would love to have you on, so in the future discussions we can have a nice open template of everybody across the nations. But thank you for watching. We'll be back soon. This is
Bye. See you next time.